This week on MS Refresh, we continue to nurse our post-Ignite hangovers. Just me? We cover the stuff that was supposedly due last month, all that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 45 for the work week of November 15th, 2021. Coming to you from the West Coast, as always, my name is Sean Bugler.
And coming from the East Coast, my name is Matt Wade.
Matt Wade, how are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I apologize for, as always, sandbagging our start time. And of course, I apologize less to you and more so to our European friends who, for some reason, continue to stay up late for
more power to you, folks. We appreciate it.
We really, really do. So I was just talking to you about it off air, but I guess I'll share here because the news will eke out one way or the other, and we won't go into too much detail. But a couple weeks ago, we announced that I had changed job roles. I had left the public sector and I had gone to private practice. I had gone into consulting, or back to consulting, I should say. Well, today we have more exciting news. I am back in the public sector.
I think I hear I'm pretty sure I hear the Jaws theme, and Jaws in this case is the GCC tenants just coming after you and saying you are not allowed to leave.
You know, there was a great opportunity for some soul searching, and you know, I think it's not the reason, but it's one of many. But one of the big things that I didn't enjoy about that experience was that it didn't leave me with a lot of bandwidth to do what I really love, which is to engage, you know, with you and with the greater Microsoft community. It didn't make a lot of sense for me to, you know, go and like try and hunt MVP status if I was going to, you know, kill myself in the process, or not have any time to like contribute. So, you know, it was not an easy decision, you know, fiscally or otherwise, but I'm really glad to be back. I'm with the same agency, slightly different job. But yeah, and you know, I all on the merits. I applied for it just like a regular person. I didn't call in any favors.
You're still saving those for some other time in the future.
100%. That's very typical me. You know, like and you've seen this. Like I don't call in favors.
Investor. Yeah,
very much so. Like I bank all that so that one day when I'm running for president, like I can really put the pressure down.
Cannot wait for that. We will give you New York, my friend, I swear.
So that's my exciting news. Matt, do you have anything exciting on your side of the fence?
I'm just really impressed that, you know, you've got your 5 o'clock shadow going. I've got my 5-day shadow going. So we're around the same, you know, length.
We're practically the same. Honestly, I don't know how people don't tell
identical.
us
Yeah,
apart. I mean, if we just flip that around, it's like, which one of us is which?
Who was who? I don't know. The other thing was somewhat notable. We broke 20,000 subscribers on the channel this week.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah, it's been kind of I haven't been doing a whole bunch of separate content development. So definitely the YouTube algorithm rewards you for putting out regular non-live streamed videos. I think the live streams are supposed to be more of a, what's the word? Supplement to what you're putting out there. Yeah. But it's been growing, you know, pretty steadily, and that's way more followers on any platform that I've ever had. So like, I think that's pretty good. So we're doing good work here.
No, absolutely. I mean, a testament to the content that you do put out separate from this. And for those of you who only tune into the live show, check out Matt's back catalog. There's a ton of really great videos about Teams and the Microsoft 365 universe. My personal favorite, the Which Tool When video. We'll drop that one in the show notes just for the sake of it. If you haven't seen it, it's great. But no, really a testament to your work ethic and what it is that you bring to the table on that one. So congratulations.
Oh, you say work ethic. I wasn't working at that time. I was writing a book. So my work ethic was, boy, I should probably do something while I'm not working.
The work ethic was be stressed.
Right. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, so that's all I got. You want to just jump into the news for the evening?
Let's do it.
Sweet.
This is the news.
Hi, it's me again. And my window decides to close right now. Hold that thought. And I'm back. You know, we usually dedicate the first episode of the month to covering all the things that were supposed to arrive the month before, October in this case. Of course, that didn't happen thanks to Microsoft Ignite. But if you thought we were just going to let them off the hook completely just because they announced some shiny new toys, well, then you don't know us at all. Let's highlight some things that we finally launched last month, according to the Microsoft 365 roadmap, starting with everybody's favorite productivity OS, Microsoft Teams. Teams had a number of features delivered in October, including sharing to Teams from Outlook. They also launched meeting room physical capacity notifications, channel and SharePoint folder name syncing, which is a big ask. We've been excited for that one for a long time. Suggested replies in private chat and mobile apps, user-based team app micro purchases available if enabled by your admin, about a dozen of updates for those of you using the Teams Rooms devices. For all you educators out there, sharing content live from camera also launched. Live transcripts in channel and in unscheduled meetings so that you didn't have to do everything super formal. Also launched the ability to set the default way for Office files to open from Teams. This also launched for all of our friends in GCC. And lastly, Breakout Room picked up presenter support. So that's really nice. That also came along for the ride for all of our GCC friends. Now, you might have noticed we're trying to kind of drill in on some of the stuff that's happening in the government universe, but we actually have some more. So let me just jazz up the ambiance here. Perfect. Teams for our friends in government also got some love, as we were starting to mention. Teams guest access for GCC High and guest access on mobile apps for GCC High and DoD came along for the ride. Presenter mode meetings in GCC High and DoD are now available, and native notifications for macOS users on DoD, that's specific, for the 5 folks at NASA who have surely been waiting for this entire time. Let's jump over to SharePoint for a moment. This is, well, let me rephrase that. This is normally where we turn our attention to SharePoint, but increasingly all the SharePoint updates are actually ended up being just related to Teams or lists. This includes comments in Lists apps within Teams. So for those of you using the List app in Microsoft Teams, you can now comment in line. Speaking of being in Teams, you can also now edit modern SharePoint pages. So you can do more without leaving the desktop application. And lastly, supposedly SharePoint related, the ability to create custom list templates directly within Teams for Microsoft Lists. Likewise, OneDrive was relatively light on releases as well. Nonetheless, the cloud storage platform is said to have picked up the following updates. The separate OneDrive app, or Progressive Web App, PWA, has launched. Now, this one's a little confusing because it coexists with the sync client, but there are some functional differences, one of which is it doesn't sync, but it can function as its own dedicated app. And also, the shared with experience at the bottom of the share card pop-up is now available, allowing users to quickly see who already has access to a specific file or folder. Well, like we mentioned at the top, Ignite just happened. And as announced at Ignite, the newly rebranded homepage of Office.com, now known as the Office Hub, got a fresh coat of paint with the roadmap specifically highlighting the new Create experience, which includes new app shortcuts for Lists, Sway, which still exists, Power BI, and lots of other file types to include the complement of existing file apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on. And to close us out, some neat micro updates from across the Microsoft universe. For example, Outlook, all meetings are now online by default, which is interesting. So for those of you that love that Teams taxed itself on to every meeting like the friend trying to sneak into the club with you, there you go. Project for the web, which still exists as well, gets Critical Path, which shows all the steps that affect your delivery date. And lastly, Whiteboard, revamped for iOS, is now available, and Whiteboard for Android has hit general availability.
That was the news.
A lot of updates.
We'll flip that around. Yeah. I mean, there were it was kind of a light one, actually. Usually when we go through these, it's about the same length, but there's just a lot more to filter out for like importance, if you want to call it that.
Sure, I hear
And
that.
most of the updates that we covered tonight were most of the updates that were listed on the roadmap for October. So clearly they were pushing out their deliverables to align with Ignite and not having to deal with, or other things got pushed to November now or December or whatever. Which is
so what you're saying is that we didn't have to take any editorial control whatsoever?
I mean, a smidge. There are a few things that really, I don't really find all that important. So I generally, kind of pull them out. But, it was a reasonably light month.
I hear that. So one of the things, Matt, that, of course, we talk about on the show a lot, given that it's a live show, is that because we schedule these out in advance, that people can jump in and they can ask questions. They can, even if they can't catch us live during the show, they can still influence the course of the show by asking these questions and kind of either planting the seed in our head or something that we can do research on in advance to make sure that we've got a good answer for. And you brought one up that I thought would be really great for us to talk about. Can you?
Let's pull that up here, which was a reference to Viva kind of just pushing its way into the experience in a bunch of different ways. And I kind of poked at it because I've seen now the Viva learning references in Microsoft Teams a little while now and hadn't really thought much of it. But yeah, these are rolling out to tenants without any sort of opt-in option for admins. So there's not much you can do from, preventing it, at least that I'm aware of. There very well might be PowerShell scripts or GUI things that you can do in the admin center. I haven't actually looked myself, but I did notice a few different examples of things just kind of popping up. So let me share a window real quick for example, because Chrome has lost the access for me to share on my new MacBook.
While you're pulling that up, I'll just kind of reiterate what it is you were making mention of, because Ignite had a lot of kind of restating of what Viva is, a lot of re-announcements with respect to what was coming out in Viva. We also got some new shiny Viva logos that, I think probably are a little less confusing than the weird dots and dashes.
Yeah, they were weird.
That looked like, written Morse code. I think that Viva obviously had its moment with respect to what it is. They also announced, and we talked about this during our recap last week, that there's going to be a 5th Viva module. So it's not just, what is it? Insights, learning, connections. What am I missing? Insights, learning, connections.
And topics.
Topics. Thank you.
Yes.
And there's topics. A 5th unnamed one as a result of a recent acquisition of Microsoft. But with that having been said, it does seem like a lot of the stuff that Microsoft announced that was going to be coming in late summer got pushed to the fall, and more specifically got pushed this week, because a lot of stuff is happening this week and last week with respect to Viva. There are rollouts and new features and functionality that just wasn't there. One of the ones that I noticed, for example, was in Outlook on the web. That now in the action panel next to reply and forward and blah, 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 is a Viva Insights button that pulls up the Viva card experience that we've been talking about. Which is
crazy that high value real estate is being slipped in this thing that's new that so few people are actually going to use.
Yeah, like Viva, that could Viva be reply with meeting could go there.
When are you guys going to give us Find Time built in for everybody so that we don't have to do it ourselves? Because it's like, don't give us things we're not asking for. Give us things that are useful that will actually impact people on a day-to-day basis. Like Insights is a nice thought. And if you're willing to track your time and it's basically a mental health tracker kind of, right? And like, if you're not interested in that, you want nothing to do with it, right? Like, I mean, if you do want it, great, but like it's there, so go use it. But just putting it in that bar and Outlook for the web, which to me is just insane. Like, what justification is there for that?
And particularly given that Viva is so plainly structured in a way to try and juice income, to juice revenue for Microsoft. Right. I just checked into our comments here, and a mutual friend of ours, mine and yours, Andy Honeycutt, just jumped in. And if you remember correctly, and I believe he's right about this,
Yeah, I would assume
opting
he
out
is.
of Viva Learning is restricted to PowerShell, which of course is your favorite restriction.
Yes,
Because
of course.
not only are you not doing opt-in, you're doing opt-out, but you're also gating it. It's like it's a technical opt-out. It's a begrudging opt-out. And yeah, he makes a good point. It should be opt-in so that organizations have an opportunity to understand where its value is. And I think that that's particularly pressing when we talk about the history of SharePoint as an example. Organizations, particularly when SharePoint was, getting updated, every 3 years or so, things would just change overnight and users would be overwhelmed with what these changes were. And that would ultimately lead a bad taste in their mouth. They would hate the SharePoint experience because there was no autonomy. There was no opportunity for organizations to understand, adapt, and massage these things into the organization as part of the broader thread of how they're operating, rather than just kind of, operating on a marketing schedule, which is not great.
And so here's the two things that I've now come across are the learnings slipped its way into Outlook, like you said, and of course I can't change my settings to share without quitting Chrome, which would quit the video. So I'll just tell you what it is.
Knock to Mac OS.
I know, right? Yeah, it's great, but it's too secure, right? What are you gonna do? But okay, new conversation, reply to conversation in Teams, and you get in the toolbar at the bottom, Viva Learning. Now, I just tried it myself, and it can't even find anything. Now, I don't know what the setup is in the background, if I have to connect to LinkedIn Learning or Microsoft Learning Portal, anything like that. But if it just rolls out and there's not any connection to anything, I literally get an error that says incorrect ID or something like that. So it doesn't work. So that's just a poor rollout process.
Which of course never happens when Microsoft rolls something out. This is new.
So that annoys me. But that's not nearly as high value real estate as that bar is in Outlook for the web. So it doesn't bother me as much. But it's just the little things. If you look at the icon, the typical icon design for that toolbar are outlined icons. So if you look at the smiley face, it's an open circle with 2 dots and a smile. It's not a full filled in, a dark mode smiley face effectively. Same with the stream icon. It's the outline version of stream. The praise, badge is an outline of that. But no, the Viva Learning is 2 pages, one being pulled open, and it's dark. So it's the thing that stands out to you the most. And I know that sounds so petty, but it makes a difference that they're trying to pull your attention. Now, did they do that on purpose? Maybe this new, logo design doesn't really have a knockout version yet. Nobody had put the thought into that, which all right. But either it's lazy or it's malicious, that you're trying to grab somebody's attention to something that they otherwise wouldn't care about because they don't know what it is, right? So that annoys me a little bit, in addition to the fact that they've rolled this out without the opt-in option being super obvious. But the other thing is, if you go into the app launcher now, what was My Analytics has been rebranded to be Viva Insights. So that has a new logo as well. And if you go to it, homepage of Viva Insights, up in the top says Microsoft Viva Insights, great. Click on any one of the options in the toolbar on the left side, and it brings you to myanalytics.microsoft.com. The coloring and scheme is totally different. It says, welcome to My Analytics. It has My Analytics in the sweet bar. So the only
anything.
Right. The only Viva branding on this is literally just that homepage, which is insights.viva.office.com. And yeah, it keeps the color scheme. But the second you leave that homepage and go anywhere else, personal settings, how it works, it will bring you back to My Analytics, show you the My Analytics logo. So did you really roll out? And theoretically, Viva Insights is a replacement for My Analytics. It adds more things. It's the natural progression of My Analytics. It could have stayed with the term My Analytics. There's nothing stopping that from happening, right? But it had to be that Viva branding, and that branding is really just a repackaging or a rebranding of something that already exists. And that's the thing that really bugs me, because it didn't add any more value here. It just makes it confusing. So those people that do like My Analytics probably woke up one morning and go, where's my stuff, right? And then the other people are looking at it going, what is that? Why is there this? Right. What is this Insights thing? All right, Outlook it is, that's where I really want to go.
And I hate the phrase, but this is truly one of those instances of who moved to the cheese. So I jumped into my email to take a screenshot of it here, and so this is what the Office or the Outlook in the web
Oh, I
experience
didn't even
looks like.
see it there. I saw it
And so,
on the bottom.
yeah, so if you look off to
Oh
the
my God,
immediate
that's even
left of
worse.
the like button, there's just this mystery bloom that appears. This just started rolling out, as far as I can tell, to my tenant today.
Looks like blue broccoli or something with a little check in it or something. I don't know.
Like, or the mini Windows 11 wallpaper.
Oh yeah, that's kind of true. Yep, I like that.
And
That's
so you
good.
click on that, and you would think clicking on it, you would think clicking on it would do something related to that email, right? Because everything else about that, like the email, reply to the email, reply all to the meeting or the email, forward the email. You click on it and you get this, a Viva Insights panel, which is completely irrelevant to
and non-contextual to the email
at all.
Also,
now, I don't know if that's just like missing a hook or something because it's so new, but
you're lucky because on your end you actually see something. Mine is just a blank white pane with a logo at the top, and that's like my primary tenant, which theoretically has tap access. So like I should have had it weeks ago, if not a long time previously.
Right.
I have nothing. And the example where I said learning wasn't working in Teams, that was in one of those demo tenants. So like it should be working fine. So both of these things somewhere along the lines have not rolled out correctly.
Right.
And like it's fine to put a button there, but the button better do something, right? Even if it isn't super useful.
They're holding on to it. You almost get the sense they're holding on to these things as close to go time as possible to surprise and delight us. Right. And gang, if that's where we're going with this, there's got to be some intermediary step of like, is this going to work when we hit that big red button of go?
Yeah, right. So Andy pointed out, and that was the thing, I wasn't sure exactly what was included, but he said that some learning content sources will be enabled by default. So LinkedIn Learning, that comes at a cost. Microsoft Learn, I believe, comes at a cost. And the
Microsoft Learn is free. That's
free. Okay. And then the 365 training is free as well. But definitely LinkedIn Learning comes at a cost because that comes with my premium LinkedIn account.
Sure, that's lynda.com stuff right there.
Right, yeah, exactly. The former lynda.com that they purchased and rebranded. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's
and this is not to say that there aren't components of Viva that can be useful. I think LinkedIn Learning as a tool for organizations that do have it, this is a really meaningful integration because it's going to help smooth out one of the biggest challenges, which is just-in-time knowledge discovery. Right. The problem is making the assumption that that's universally relevant to every organization and just paradropping it on them.
Yeah. The more we get into this whole Viva world, the less and less. Like I'm pretty cynical to start with. I think you know that. I gave when we did our first Viva overview, I gave it a chance. All right, this is interesting. It's a little bit backdoorsy. We want to get that employee experience team and not talk to the IT team anymore, which fine, you got to up your sales somehow. But literally all this stuff is minimal value add, if not value detraction, because you don't have to offer me Viva Learning doesn't have to be a thing. It can just be, the M365 learning portal, right? That's totally acceptable. And you can look at that as something that you plug into a SharePoint site or into a tab in Teams or wherever else you happen to be working from. The fact that Viva Topics is literally just SharePoint syntax with a different name, but syntax still exists, that doesn't make any sense. And the fact that Insights is just my analytics with Headspace attached to it now, so what? And Connections is literally just SharePoint plus Yammer in Teams, which means if you're on the government cloud, you don't even benefit from that because Yammer doesn't exist in the government cloud. So Viva can't exist, at least from the connection standpoint, unless you want to call SharePoint homepages in Teams sufficient to be called Viva Connections, which if that's the case, what was the point of including Yammer? It's just, I don't know. That's all I got to say.
So I just said, I can't for the life of me imagine why Microsoft would want to shoehorn LinkedIn Learning into all the things that they own. I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue. I feel like there's got to be some obvious thing where they're from.
Well done.
And just on the off chance that anybody is listening to just the audio components of it, or whatever, there's a scrolling ticker down at the bottom of this screen.
No. Let it be subtle. You were doing so good until you said that.
I just want to make sure that I'm being accessible here.
I have to fire you. That was terrible. No, you had such a good joke. You don't call out the joke to make it funny. You just.
I don't know how to do that accessibly.
Okay, fair enough.
LinkedIn acquired lynda.com in 2015 for $1.5 billion. And they did not do that out of the goodness of their hearts. They didn't do that to hopefully upskill a whole generation of people.
But they can still incorporate it and integrate it without it being this, curtain in front of the Wizard of Oz, right?
Sure. I agree with you. Treat them like a partner, like everybody else. Don't make that something that's embedded out of the box. I agree with you.
Perfectly fine. It's like, if I go to a Disney park, I expect that they're going to try to upsell me to get Disney Plus, right? or something else within their umbrella of corporate, experience. Yeah, that's expected. That's perfectly fine. But don't try to wrap it up in this, new wrapping paper that doesn't actually represent what it is and actually confuses people to think that it's something that it's not. And then I don't know, it's just not great.
Just clearly defines what you're paying $5 per user per month for now.
But that's still a way better deal than Cortana Meeting Scheduler for $10 a user per month. So let's just throw that out there. Still, that's just that one. That one will never, ever not make me laugh. I will say this comment is valid. So I wasn't trying to just bash insights. If you do like tracking your time and how many times you are, being pulled into meetings, how much focus time you have, doing the virtual commute, the headspace stuff, total respect for that, right? It's a planning / mental health kind of tool. Absolutely love it. But sure. I don't need it in my face, right? I can go find that if I need to. It's one of the apps in the app
everywhere. It's everywhere.
Right. And placing it next to the reply button in an email, making it one of the most important, I didn't realize that was where you were talking about. I thought you meant the bar below, which is also where it shows up. The highlight color and the formatting and add a sensitivity label, that space. I didn't realize it was all the way up there, which
that's prime real estate.
Not prime. That is the real estate. What CVP had to talk to what CVP to say, hey, I need this 18 by 18 pixel space that you've never let anybody else have before. Mm-hmm. Consider what that conversation actually data. What was that conversation like? Because I would love to have heard it. Because there's no way that some random engineer out there said, this is a really good idea. We should definitely put that there. And then some random engineer in a building 500 miles away that happens to work on the other portion, right? I don't know, got together and said, this is a great idea, right?
One of two things happened. Either the success of Viva is a clearly defined KPI at the highest levels, or somebody went over somebody's head. Those are the only two scenarios I can envision.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the first.
The success of Viva and it as a revenue generating machine is the clearly defined KPI for the entire Microsoft 365 universe. It has to.
Yeah. And the funny thing about this too is that this now has trickle down effects. So I can tell you just from personal experience that Viva related conference sessions are going to be smiled upon more than others. And I know for a fact that that's already happening because I kind of had to be weird. When the suggestions were coming in or the submittals were coming in for a conference that I was helping pick sessions for, it was we have X number of sessions for Viva. And it's okay, the team side of Viva or the SharePoint, which module?
We don't care. It just has to say Viva.
Right. And it just, people have to know what they're looking for. They have to know that Viva is here. And it's I totally get that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean anything to those of us who are actually implementing this crap. So if it's going to be a technical conference and not an employee experience conference or some HR legal, I don't know, procure, the other customer service orgs within a company, that's not your audience here. You're not going to have that audience. So you want to make sure that people understand what they're actually doing, which is implementing Yammer and SharePoint into Teams is Viva Connections. That's it, right?
Sure.
That's my conference session. I'm done. Do I get paid now?
You're getting paid?
No, I'm not getting actually paid. I'm just making a comment, but yeah.
Well, I think that we've built a high enough soapbox. I don't even know how I'm supposed to get down now.
I have a lot of tall soapboxes. Don't worry, we'll get you down. Can be done.
You should be building your house in like floodplain territory. You'll be safe.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. I think this is a valid comment too, though. So the fact that workplace analytics actually brings this information together is still valuable. As far as I know, that term hasn't changed. I don't believe the Viva branding has infiltrated workplace analytics, even if it has taken over line limits.
I think it might have.
Wrong. Oh, has it? Oh, okay.
I think if nothing else, if it hasn't from a branding perspective yet, I think that's on the roadmap because they're already figuring out how to like upsell organizational insights under Viva Insights as an add-on. Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, if that, I'll double check to make sure that's not the case, but if it's not, it will be soon enough. They're really trying to bundle all this as best they can.
Yeah, I can't even remember how to get into that anymore. Look that up.
Well, we'll come back to that.
Right.
But yeah, not a ton of questions here. We'll just kind of run through here. A lot of congratulations. I appreciate that. Heard it here first. Running for president, apparently. One thing I do want to flag here. This is a good question and an opportunity for me to clarify. So my organization is government, but we are no longer in GCC, but I still, GCC is near and dear to me. So I work really closely with a lot of people who do. So yeah, definitely still going to be very top of mind for me. But I do want to dial in on the second part of this here, which is, will we see Loop in GCC DoD in 2022? I think I would say yeah. Hang on, let me double back. If Loop launches in the first quarter of 2022, I think there's a really good chance that we see Loop by the end of 2022 in the lowest level of GCC. I'm willing to like stake there. If we don't see Loop launch before, Loop launch before, I'm going to say March. I don't think we're going to see it in 2022 for GovClouds. I hope I'm wrong.
Not to like totally get this off onto a tangent, but I'm kind of curious to know what your thought process is there. So from my experience, the older apps are already FedRAMP approved for now I realize that GCC low, high, and DoD are very different beasts. GCC low or just basic GCC, like a more secure version of the commercial cloud. And then you have DoD and high on their own sovereign clouds. And getting those features in high and DoD for like SharePoint, pretty easy, to the point that like Stream at this point, all of the new Stream features, the product group has promised through the account groups to DoD and GCC customers that anything that comes to Stream in commercial for the new Stream will come to the rest of the clouds within 3 months. But that's because it's SharePoint based and it's easy to get the SharePoint stuff through for whatever reason. But sure. Teams falls behind constantly on those two clouds. And I'm wondering if it's because it's new, right? It's newer. So they didn't build that tool to be FedRAMP approved. They built it to get it out, right? And I'm wondering if Loop is going to be a victim of that same sort of mindset.
That's where my head is at. So the Microsoft as a collective within the Microsoft 365 universe has tried to go on record multiple times in multiple spaces and say that when something launches in commercial, presuming there are not architectural roadblocks, like fundamental disconnects with respect to the way that a tool is built and how it communicates to the internet, blah, 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 blah. Barring those kinds of roadblocks, that it should be a 4 to 6 month window between launching in commercial and launching in GCC low, like just the base level of GCC. That's their North Star. And that has a lot to do with the logistical challenges. And, Matt, you already know this, but for those of you that don't know, GCC, GCCI, DoD, those are all completely separate servers. So that, and there are really strict requirements with respect to who can actually touch those. They've got to be US citizens. There's a background check that has to go back 7 years. Like there are a lot of disconnects, and it just gets more and more stringent as you get higher and higher up, GCC high, DoD, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, just getting it into GCC, they try to aim for 4 to 6 months. So if it's launching in March or April, May, June, July, August, September, October, you're saying on the outset, maybe launching in October, right around Ignite for them to say, hey, we got it in government. And then the Microsoft slowdown. Like Redmond is already slowing down right now. I don't think we see GCC High and DoD launch next year if they even get it into GCC.
Yeah, so like as an example, GCC High only got live events in July. And that's what, 2 or more years after live events became a real thing. Like it can be a long time before the other clouds get it. And I realize GCC is probably more popular because it can cover state and local government, which there are more of those, right? But there's also plenty of people in GCC High, and then DoD is the Pentagon, right? So like I think that's probably the largest single customer that Microsoft has, maybe. But yeah, that does. All right, so Andy
coming in for the win here. Fluid Components and Teams chats is hitting general availability this month.
Are hitting GCC with it. I didn't even think to look.
So it'll be interesting to see if that's enough, because if it is, we may even see concurrent launches. It'll be interesting to see, but yeah, I would say barring major architectural upheavals, presuming that Loop launches in the first quarter of next year, I think it's a really good chance that GCC sees it. Questionable on the GCC High and DoD side of things.
I'm also curious. So the Fluid Components and Teams chat is not. I mean, that's definitely useful, and like the fact that that's coming out at the same time as the general is really, really good to know. But I'm also curious to see, like, that's an underlying technology that is being pulled in, and it's not getting to the Loop, canvas and all that stuff, because this is the first thing that Microsoft has put out that actually is like fluid based,
right?
Is these components and Teams chats. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I both know people that have got GCC tenants, so like we'll take a look. We'll circle back during the next episode and just see where we're at.
Yeah, definitely. Agreed.
Right on.
All right, well, that was a good rant. That felt good.
Therapeutic.
Well, I don't have to go into Viva Insights now because about having complained about Viva Insights. It just really feels good. So
yeah, who needs space when you've got a live show where you can rant?
Yeah, when I've got you
1,000+ people.
Yeah, and then bounce my arguments and my constant ramblings off on you. It just, I don't know, makes me feel much better inside. I sleep better at night. So thank you, Sean.
Now that you mention it, ever since we launched this, I've had trouble sleeping.
And I haven't, so it's been really appreciative.
This is like the Ghostbusters portrait. I'm slowly getting worse and worse at sleeping, and you're getting better.
Worst part is there's going to be a good amount of people that watch this that are younger than us probably and are like, what? Ghostbusters?
What does Paul Rudd have to do with this?
Yeah, that too. Yep, I was going to say the one with Leslie Jones and everything, but yeah. Who knows?
Well, right on. So we are back next week, but just planting the seeds for those of you who, build your entire world around us. Please don't. But if you do, we will be taking not next week off, but the week after off to recover from Thanksgiving, because Lord only knows I will do terrible things over Thanksgiving, and I'll need some time to kind of rectify that.
I was waiting for you to be very specific there, doing like terrible things.
Oh no, it's because this is live and I know I can't edit this after the fact. Very conservative.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah. So we will be taking next Thursday is Thanksgiving in the U.S. So we will be taking the Monday after that off because probably nobody in Red will be working anyway, so there won't be any updates to talk about. And then 2 weeks after that, I won't be here. I don't know, Sean, if you want to do it yourself, but that would be the 6th. So I will be off on 12/6. Just
to be decided.
All right, fair enough. Well, you may just like pop in and do it anyway, and that thing that you do, which is much appreciated. So, all right. So I think that about does it. Thank you everybody so much for watching. As always, a like and a subscribe is much appreciated. Leave a comment below to continue the discussion from the live session, and always remember you can show up here live on Mondays. And Sean, thanks so much for joining me this week and listening to me rant and complain and just be the most cynical, negative person in the world, because sometimes got to get it out there so that you can't sleep and that I can. And I look forward to hanging out with you again next week. And thanks everybody so much for watching, and we will see you next week.